In this episode of The Happy Curator, we do have some adult language, so please grab your headphones if you have little ones around you.
If you're constantly running from one thing to the other, it's super easy to be disconnected, right? It's almost impossible to be connected when you're constantly moving. You need downtime. You need that stillness.
That is Anita Kaiser, and this is the Happy Curator podcast. Hey happy people, welcome to the show. I'm Juliet J. Harris, aka The Happy Curator, your host. Anita is a priestess who trained in Reiki, energy work, and emotional freedom technique. Anita and I connected due to the fact that we are empaths. Empaths, if you don't know, lack the filters most people use to protect themselves from excessive stimulation and can't help but take in surroundings' emotions and energies, whether they're good, bad, or something in between. They also have a higher sensitivity to outside stimuli, such as sounds, big personalities, and hectic environments. They bring a lot of heart and care to the world and feel things very deeply. I was really interested in having Anita on the show to talk about her work. She helps empaths set boundaries so that they can thrive in their daily lives and gives them the tools to properly nurture themselves when their emotions run high. Anita dreams of a world where we are all deeply connected to our emotions and no longer trying to be someone else. Her commitment to helping others move forward past their painful history, discover joy, and find their inner fire was forged in her previous work as a yoga and mindfulness instructor. This is our conversation. Anita, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing, my lovely?
I'm doing just great, Juliet. Thanks so much for having me here.
Oh, pleased. It's my pleasure. I'm so excited to have you with us because what you do is just amazing in my book. I'm an empath, as we've talked before, and the fact to have someone like you out there helping people like me deal with our boundaries and the rest is just something extremely special, I think, and much needed. So what I would like is if you could explain to us how you got into being a coach about empathy and helping all these lovely people. What brought it up?
Well, I think certainly my own empath journey, right? And, even the word empath by its very nature, like it's only maybe 10 years old, maximum that you've started hearing that, right? Initially, I just thought, wow, my emotions are over the top all the time, right? And I think, when I started to realize, oh, wait, these emotions aren't always mine. This was so life-changing, right? To build that awareness for myself. And then when I started to talk to more and more empaths, to realize we all feel like we're the crazy ones, right? For most of our lives, in most cases, the empaths have felt like their emotions are too much, which makes them too much, which creates a real struggle internally when you feel like you're always too much. And so when I started looking into this and getting a really clear understanding, I knew this was my calling, right? This was the place for me to begin to support people. And with the current state of the world, I really feel like the empaths are here to birth this new world, because for so long we've lived in an emotionally devoid place, which is
Very true.
why if you're experiencing any emotions, it seems like they're too much, because that everybody's fine. Things are fine, right? They don't want you to have joy, and they don't want you to have sadness or anger or upset, right? Just be fine, just fine, right? So if you have anything other than fine, it can be, intense for people who are disconnected from their emotions. So I believe the empaths are here to birth this new world of actual emotional regulation and actual emotion. Really, like, there just isn't another word, to actually feel the emotions and allow them through you, as opposed to pushing them down, right? Which so many people are doing.
I don't know how it is in Canada, but in the UK, definitely so. Well, I know you've got the Commonwealth, but in the UK, it's been very upper stiff lip in, and you suck it up, push it down, and then people burst.
Yeah, that's right.
And I remember as a child, or even as a teenager and a young woman, I was always too much,
Yeah.
too loud, too quiet, too something. But the emotions that I was having in me, I couldn't really express them, because expressing them meant being judged.
Yeah,
And when you're constantly being judged, you don't want to talk anymore. So you just bottle it up.
of course.
And that's the issue that we're getting, is people are bottling and bottling up all these emotions. And at one point, they completely burst
Yeah.
in different ways. Some people lose the plot. Some people will just go and jump off a bridge. Which is the scariest part of all. Some people will go and smack someone for no reason, because
That's right.
they've contained it for so long, and they
Yeah.
don't know. They've never been taught how to deal with their emotions. And when I see parents now, especially men, telling their son, it's okay to cry. You are allowed to cry. It doesn't matter if you're a boy or a girl. That warms my heart when I see that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We have such a problem with toxic masculinity, right? For generations and generations, that has been such a huge problem. And I think there is a shift happening now, right? Where we are creating more space for the emotions, and that's really, really powerful.
It is. And I see with my clients, of course, I'm empathic. And I've seen with my clients, when they've talked about certain things, that they've never been able to tell anybody else, because they were not allowed. It
Yeah.
was just stuck and there, and they couldn't do anything. So suddenly they get to a certain age and they want someone to talk to feel free to be able to talk about what's in them. And there's a beauty when finally people realize that they need to talk about their emotions to free themselves up.
It's like, when you shake a pop can, right? And this is sort of what we've been doing, shaking this pop can that's closed for so long, right? And sooner or later, that thing's going to explode. And this is what's been going on. And so often, because we are so repressed in the emotion, by the time it comes out, what's coming out is so intense and over the top, right? That it can be like quite intimidating in so many cases. And the idea of allowing the emotions as they come up, so they're not, you know, they're not going to bowl you over. You have an opportunity to just allow it to flow, as opposed to, Niagara Falls. It's like pouring out, right?
Yeah, and I see it with myself when at one point I shoved down my emotions so deep that, and they were not coming out of my toes, basically they were starting to get to my throat, and I thought, I can't handle this anymore. I need to let it out.
Yeah. And it creates blockages in our body, right? It creates energetic blockages and also physical blockages, right? So it really is not, it's not the way to thrive by pushing the emotions down, right? It's definitely not a thriving path.
No, it's not. And it's really, like I said before, a question of teaching people that it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to limit your boundaries and say, I can't handle with this now.
Yeah.
But in this society today, it's go, 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 never stop. People are expecting so much of you. At the end of the day, we're only humans. We're not machines.
Yeah, of course.
And some of us need the space to regroup, to breathe.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I find people don't take the time to be with themselves because they're scared of being with themselves.
Of course, of course. And if you've spent your whole life being distracted, that's what you were taught. That's what, the way you were told to cope from the beginning. Of course, there is an adjustment period. It takes time. And you have to find that place of softness and acceptance for the shift, right? I think, what you just said, like, we have such a problem in our society too with this toxic positivity, right? It's going to be okay. And it will be okay. But it's this, find the higher vibration thought. And there, of course, is value to, not getting stuck, but we have to accept what is. And when you are honest with yourself and able to acknowledge, hey, I'm having a bit of a shit day. Like, today doesn't feel so good. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It just means today is not a great day. And so then you have the opportunity to be like, okay, today is not a great day. So what am I going to do to give myself some comfort in this shit day? Right. And create that space and, find some softness for yourself.
Yes, and some people, a lot of people, as you and I know, don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm a super, super big advocate of self-care. If you're going to start somewhere, start with self-care.
Yeah.
And go and take a bath, or put yourself in a little corner, grab a book, or just be and sit with your thoughts. People are scared of their thoughts. We've seen it so much. Again, distraction, TV, radio, phone. The phone is the worst thing for that. Because we get sucked into those things and we think, well, I'm getting some me time because I'm on the phone. You're not getting some me time. You're being distracted by something else and you're not with your thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is something, when we traveled in the RV, right? It was, we moved quite quickly throughout because we covered the entire not the entire US, but certainly, from the East Coast to the West Coast. And
A quick apart, Anita, I'm just going to explain to people that Anita and her family went traveling around the US and Canada, I think, in an RV to discover, all these lovely places, but also to be a proper family and connect to each other.
Yeah.
So that not
Yeah.
everybody.
And so as we traveled, because we were moving every 4 days, I really noticed when we're moving that fast, it was very easy to disconnect from myself and my feelings, because there was always something going on, right? And so, I was really aware, and I made a big effort to stay grounded and to keep journaling and to notice what I was feeling, because it would have been so easy to not, right? And that's just, it's just ties into the busyness of our lives, right? If you're constantly running from one thing to the other, it's super easy to be disconnected, right? It's almost impossible to be connected when you're constantly moving. You need downtime. You need that stillness.
And that's the thing. People wear the word busy as a badge of honor.
Yeah.
And it's a word that I barely use. Well, except for the phone is busy. But But I'm like, are you being productive or just having a shit day and not doing much? And a friend of mine, as I keep saying, I would call him, he was Italian, and it'd be like, what you doing? He's like, well, I'm busy. I might be window shopping, but I'm busy. And actually, I realized after a while that it was his way for him to disconnect, that he needed that space
Yeah.
to breathe. But instead of saying that, because at the time society, oh, you're doing nothing, you always need to be on the go, he just figured out, well, if I say that I'm busy, then they'll just leave me alone.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? Like it's this constant state of go, go, go. It is what is rewarded. And like we're constantly saying this, all of us, and it's okay to not be busy for a few minutes or even like a whole day, you know? And you talked about self-care, and I think of self-care, it's lovely to be able to take a bath or sit down and read a book. For me, as an empath, my self-care revolves a lot about being in nature, right? About taking that opportunity to get grounded. And whether it's me sitting in my garden or going on a hike or, being at the lake, it is really just that time to observe what's going on around me. And I love sitting in the garden and watching the hummingbirds, or like the bumblebees, or right now going into fall, the little goldfinches are all eating the seeds off the flowers. Like I love being in the moment and seeing that, right? And it's so easy to miss.
I agree. And in the morning, and at the moment I can still do it because the weather is back to some really nice temperatures. But every morning during the summer, when I could, I would have my coffee outside. And after my meditation, would just sit and stare, look at the butterflies, look at the bees, and connect with my pets.
Yeah.
And it was just this half hour of stillness before launching into the day that,
Yeah.
like you say, grounds you. It sets you off for the day. And there were a couple of days, well, maybe a bit more, where I didn't do that. And at the end of the day, I couldn't understand why I was feeling fidgety and not with myself. And it's because I didn't take the time in the morning. So some mornings it may be 10 minutes of looking at the bees, and others it'd be 30 minutes. But when I didn't do that, I didn't feel well. And when I got hit by COVID, well, I was miserable as can be. And of course, it was right at the beginning of lockdown, so I couldn't sit in the garden and just enjoy. I just had a pity party for about 10 days. But For me, nature is essential. Yes, when I mention self-care, it also includes walking. There's nothing like a walk, and especially when you have a dog, you just want to go for a walk, look at the butterflies, the birds, the trees, and looking at the change of season also,
Oh, I love
and
that.
enjoying that, going from spring to summer, the first buds, and then the leaves starting to fall. It just brings so much joy and contentment, and
Yeah.
I think it's the little things that people don't realize are important and what will soothe them.
Yeah. That sort of statement where I see a lot with my clients where they're struggling with what is, right? They want to be working on something that feels bigger. And yet there is this struggle here with this smaller, more mundane thing. Like, for example, the neighbor's really annoying me, right? And so oftentimes people are like, oh, I don't want to be focused here. But even clearing the stuff around something that feels mundane can create space to release some of those older, deeper patterns, right? Like when we do work on ourselves, it doesn't always have to be deep, dark, digging right into whatever traumas there have been. And I feel like that is such a powerful thing for people to understand, right? Everything that happens that annoys us or frustrates us or creates confusion, all of that can be used for your growth if you can see it.
Yes, and growth is so important. That's another thing. Keep learning, keep discovering who you are. And part of discovering who you are is setting boundaries.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
how do you teach your clients to set boundaries? Because some people very, right from the get go, they were born, they had their boundaries, and that was it. And some people over the years, have been pushed and shoved around and don't even know their own limits anymore. They just know they're unwell. They don't
Yeah.
know why. They don't understand they haven't set boundaries for themselves and so to be respected by their entourage. So how do you go about teaching that to your clients?
I think it really depends on the client for starters, right? Most of us have not been taught what proper boundaries are, right? Most of us are taught to be nice, to, over promise, right? And, don't rock the boat and all those sorts of things, all those messages are counterintuitive to real boundaries, right? Because real boundaries mean respecting yourself no matter what other people are going to think, right?
Exactly.
And so, you know, and often with my clients, we first have to get in touch with the fact that there's some grief or some anger or sadness as well about the fact that the boundaries weren't respected to begin with, right? That the boundaries weren't allowed or, acknowledged or approved of. And so, we have to work through those steps first. And then once we get to that place where you can acknowledge there's anger, there's sadness, we need to grieve that these boundaries weren't respected, then we can begin to create boundaries in regular everyday scenarios. So then we get really practical. And, if you're working with clients, always going overtime, we start to look at this and create space and how can you, what tool, not tools, but what reminders can you place so that going overtime isn't a benefit to you or your client, right? It's so okay, I have this, it's time now, I have this sign or this touchstone or something that reminds me, yes, I'm done here and I am enough, right? And so then it's like a muscle with everything, right? You practice and we build that container. And eventually then they just get to the place where they're rock solid. And when somebody tries to cross their boundaries, they're like, no, that's not going to fly. Like, there isn't even a question, right? They're not getting carried away and then having to backpedal, 2 hours later. Wait a minute, I said yes to that and I wanted to say no. They instantly know that their no is available.
Yes, and a lot of people have got difficulties with the word no. And if you say no, some people will try everything for you to say yes. They will kind of bully you or they will label you. I take it from my personal experience, having had a mother that was not easy to live with. She decided to label me as difficult because La Juliet decided one day, enough. These are my boundaries and you cannot expand them anymore. Yeah. No is no. So I've been considered difficult by everyone that she has told that I was difficult. No, I don't take shit from anyone anymore. These are my boundaries. I can be flexible, but I will not break my boundaries to make you happy. Because that's the thing. A lot of people think, oh, well, you can do this, it will really make me happy. Yeah, probably you, but not me.
And this is the thing, right? If we are ready to take radical responsibility for ourselves, it's not anyone else's job to make us happy.
Nope.
Right? And so the more solid we can get in that and take ownership for when things go to shit, right? Like, and I don't mean it's always our fault by any means, but we are, active participants in our life. We make choices every single day, a million different things. And when you can accept and acknowledge and take that responsibility and say, oh, yeah, that was kind of a shitty choice I made there. Things didn't go the way I wanted to, rather than, hey, he did that to me or she made this happen. Like, we really need to get stronger within ourselves, right? That's where the power is. And then we're not being difficult, right? It's, I'm being me and you get to be you.
And that's the thing. We can agree to disagree. We can see life with a different point of view. But in this day and age now, where everything is so opposite, finding a middle ground is super hard. Right. Everything is so divisive, and you go, why? Okay, certain things I understand, you've got a strong opinion about that, but there's other stuff that we can be in the middle. We've stopped talking to each other. People are just aggressive towards another, and with this political agenda that's going on in the world, in between the UK, the US, and the rest, people are just sitting on their fences and not ready to extend an olive branch, trying to find some middle ground. And it's kind of scary. So when you're super emotional and that kind of environment really affects you, it's really important to take some time out. I decided a long time ago, I don't watch the news anymore.
Yeah.
I don't watch the news. I've got breaking news on my phone. If anything super important will happen, I will know.
That's a huge point, right? Certainly as an empath, I stopped watching the news. I can't absorb the news. I cannot have that information coming at me and still be able to be in the loving energy that I want to walk through the world in. And it doesn't mean I don't know what's going on. I know what's happening, right? I know how crazy things are. But all that divisiveness is people stuck in fear. And I know that love is the solution to that. So I do what I need to do to stay in that loving, open, heart space energy, right? And that means no news.
Exactly. The word fear. People will use that when they can't get their way with you, to instill fear one way or another. They will manipulate you, they will threaten you, they will bully you to get their own way. But at no point whatsoever did they think, well, maybe I can just talk to them.
Mhm.
And see if we can find a middle ground, see if we can solve an issue. Nothing.
And
It's quite something.
yeah, and I think, when you're in that fear, you're feeling powerless, right? That is what the
Panic.
fear is. Yes. And but again, that the moment you can take some of your power back and feel like you have a choice to make, then the fear begins to dissipate, right? And so that's when you can create some actual shift. When I'm not afraid that your difference of opinion makes my opinion less valid, right? Like it's okay. I know my conviction, right? And when I stand strong, and I often envision it sort of, it's like this rod inside me, all the things I believe, they are this core inside me holding me up. So it doesn't matter what people say or think or believe, because I'm rock solid.
Exactly. And I had this experience recently where someone was going on and on about something, and they said, "Oh, you're not talking anymore. Are you mad?" I was like, "No, I'm not mad. I'm listening attentively to what you're saying, because I really want to understand where that process is coming. Clearly, we're not agreeing on this." And I also reminded them that every action doesn't deserve a reaction. And that's where people think, and people will try to engage you all the time, but people can say a lot of bad stuff to me. Doesn't mean that I have to engage back and be shittier than them, because it's just going to be this ping pong thing of, okay, now it's going to get nasty. What other words can I throw at you? I'm not interested in that.
Yeah.
I'm interested in taking a breath, listening to what you've said to me, digesting the information depending on what it is, and then come back to you, because I'm cool, collected, and I can talk about this. But if you let your emotions override you, then that's when, especially an empath, then you go, you completely lose the plot and you cannot take it anymore.
Yeah.
And for me, when people go about something, it's not the words that come out of their mouth, it's how it's being said. I will feed off the way it's being said. How was it said? I'm not interested in the content. But if I find that you're a bit aggressive or a bit this or a bit that, then I will shut off and say, okay, I cannot handle this anymore. And often people confuse the way things are said and the content. They think that we empaths get angry about the content. Well, no, we're just, the delivery could have been better.
Mm-hmm.
And it's your delivery that's making me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, I know for me, most often I have struggled where people are saying one thing and I can feel something else under the surface, right?
Yeah.
And that has been the biggest empath lesson for me, to lean in and trust that intuitive center, right? If something feels off, if I, if you're I mean, when I was younger, I expected people to be using the words that were the truth. And it felt so confusing and discombobulated. And now I've realized, oh, maybe they don't even know their truth, but I can feel it. And, you know, if it's not a client, if it's just some casual person I've met, I'm like, yeah, this is not the energy I'm working with now. And I just go on my merry way.
Exactly. Every action doesn't deserve a reaction.
Yeah.
But for a lot of people, because that's what they've been taught, is they will try to press every single button because they want a reaction for you. And they think that by not engaging with them means that they are right or that they've won the argument. No, you've just decided to take yourself out of the equation completely so that you can go and breathe and just say, okay, well, that was interesting. I'll think about that, but you feel zen about it. And I know that in the space of the last 3 years, I have changed so much on that because I've started to realize over the years that my boundaries were super important to me.
Yeah.
And I was done of being pushed and shoved, and I've never been a people pleaser. But I guess sometimes when it comes to your parents, you try to please them and you realize that whatever you're going to do, you're never going to please them. And because it's family, they always find a way to play with your emotions and pull those strings. And it takes courage to leave those toxic environment because people are scared of change. There's they'd rather be in fear than see what's on the other side, because change is scary, but life happens when you embrace change, when you make that jump and say, okay, well, this is where I'm going.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, you know, as empaths, we have the ability to transmute the energy, right? So, and we do that all on a subconscious level. It's not like we, you know, walk in and decide, oh, Joe's unhappy today, I'm going to fix that, right? It just naturally happens. But just as you said, you know, every action doesn't require a reaction. Just because we can transmute the energy doesn't mean we need to every single time, right?
Nope. I sometimes walk into certain rooms or places and I think, something's off here. And I walk away.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is, you know, knowing your boundaries and what's acceptable for you and doing what feels right for you.
That's the thing. So when clients come to you, how long does it take for them to, have you got a set amount of interaction with you where you go, okay, you're going to need 6-10 sessions depending on the person, or it's more or less?
It really depends on the person, and it depends on the nervous system, right? And so
Yes,
often,
I wanted to talk about that.
yeah, so often with you know, our central nervous system, when you've experienced trauma, it can take multiple sessions to just get off the porch, right? And so, you know, I am so serious about doing things in a trauma-informed way. And, you know, this kind of goes back to where we talked about the busyness and the pushing, right? So often, my clients are people who they're really smart and they're used to pushing through this. But if you could push through and get the solution, you'd have already found it, because that would be, you know, so it's really about honoring the nervous system and honoring where it is and creating that safe container. And so sometimes it takes, you know, 5, 6, 8 sessions just to create a safe container, because the nervous system has been so traumatized and has never felt safe, right? And, you know, without the safe container, we can't do the deeper work. All of it is valuable, but we have to create that safe space first.
Yes. And I want to come back to the nervous system, because I know you're big on that, and I'm big on that. So can you explain to our listeners exactly what you mean by that?
By the nervous system? So when I'm talking about it specifically, it's that dysregulation, right? And really it's the fight, flight, freeze, or fold, this response that we have that is automatic. And it comes from trauma. These are, we all have trauma, and so many people believe trauma, well, I didn't go through a war, or, my dad didn't beat me, or whatever, right? There's always someone worse off. But by not honoring the trauma you've experienced, you're doing yourself a big disservice, right? And sometimes trauma can be, like, I put my hand up and the teacher said, whoa, you don't know the answer, or something like that. It can be this shame-based thing that happened in like a millisecond, and forever we carry this program. So whatever the experiences are, they are stored in our nervous system. And as we begin to do that personal work, as we begin to look through things, often when we get close, the nervous system responds with with whatever our sort of not chosen, but whatever our program is, whether it's the fight or the flight or the freeze or the fold, right? And so, finding that safe space where the nervous system can hold the sadness, the pain, the anger, whatever it is, and not go to that pre-programmed response, right? To know that you are safe, and that the threat that created this response is not the threat that is currently happening, right? So it's all about creating that safe space,
Which is really important.
Yeah.
People, especially at the moment, don't feel safe.
Yeah.
They don't know if they're going to lose their job, their house, a loved one. So many people have lost a loved one unexpectedly because nobody saw that coming. And so people will bottle up somehow and think, well, I don't want to deal with this. This is happening. This is scary. And yes, it is scary because there are a lot of changes going on the planet at the moment. A lot. And some of us are fine. We adapt. But a lot of us can't handle it. And you just need to take to social media to understand that sometimes people try to be funny or something like that, but it's to hide that the fact that they're scared.
Of course. And we all have these coping mechanisms, right? And for me, I have gone through my whole life, and I notice even when I'm feeling down, I'm often smiling, because that's the program I was taught, that you smile. And sometimes I smile when I don't feel like smiling at all. And that's not really ideal, but it's a program that I am running. It's a strategy that felt reasonable to me. And I'm very aware of it, though. And I think so often people have these programs and things, and they don't even know what their coping strategies are, right? Or
That's very true. I can go through a lot of hard stuff. And the way that I keep going, I've had a few years that have been extremely tough. And the way I've kept going is by journaling and by being grateful for the little things.
Yeah.
Even if it's my dog making me laugh or anything like that, because I grasp onto that to make it to the other day. And I think it's important to try to find something during that shit day that you're grateful about.
Yeah. And that's like, I often come back to, I mean, just the miracle. I can turn my tap on and hot water comes out. It's right now, it's quite cold here where I live, like way colder than it normally is this time of year. And, that luxury. And of course, most of the world has that, or I don't know, maybe not most of the world, a lot of the world has access to, water coming out of the tap. And like, it's not to be taken for granted. Like, it is something to be so appreciated, right? And, that's just a little thing, but so often it's hard for people to find gratitude because you can list 25 or 30 things that are kind of shit right now, right?
Yeah, but I find actually that with each day, whatever I am going through, my shit list is getting smaller and smaller because I've managed to, instead of taking whatever is not working out and spin it so that I make a 400-page list, I just condense it and say, well, that's the event. Whatever else comes out of it is just the event. That's the shitty thing. So now what am I grateful for so that I don't have to do that 400-page list of everything that's shitty in my life? And I think when we manage to shift and we manage to set our boundaries for people to respect us, then it gets easier and easier.
Yeah.
But if people don't respect you, walk away.
Yeah.
Why do you want to be surrounded by toxic people that bring you down, that fly your emotions out of the roof, when by getting rid of them, okay, maybe you will have no one. And that's what has happened to me, is by taking care of all the negative people in my life, I am left with no family because I realized that my family was extremely toxic. So my family is gone, and the friends that were super toxic towards me, I've let go. So we always say you can count your friends on one hand, and it's true. But I know that if I pick up the phone because I need something or I need some cheering up, they will be there for me. They will not try to make an excuse, well, except if they have something going on.
Sure.
But they will find the time and energy to come and find me and say, okay, what's going on? Talk to me.
Yeah.
And that is precious. And I'd rather have 3-4 people that I can rely on than to have 50 people that are there, but you can't rely on them.
It's such a huge thing to have real connection, right?
It is.
Like real connection. And I know not everybody is there yet, right? Some people still think, it's better to have quantity over quality. But I have 5 great friends, and outside of my family, and I'm so grateful for them. They are all such beautiful people. And I feel so blessed because 5, that's a lot, It certainly feels that way to me.
Exactly. And I cherish those friendships
Yeah.
because they keep me going. And it's so important. And they know my boundaries. They know to respect them like I respect them. And they know that if they need anything, they can find me. If I need anything, I can find them. It is a blessing to know that you can reach out to them and that your boundaries will be respected no matter what, because they value their own. And you get those deep, deep conversation that enlighten you, where you can talk about everything. And I'm so glad that you're helping people go there, Anita, honestly. Because if I'm honest, I haven't seen a lot of people do what you do. And that's really the reason that we connected, is because what you do is so different. And I've seen you through your post on Facebook and Instagram. You care so much about your clients and you're there for them and you do all these different things and you share your holidays and all of that. So that keeps me in the loop. But I have the chills just talking about it. And there is a beauty in that, to have people like you that really teach empaths to deal with their emotions and realize that they're not crazy or that they're too much of something.
Yeah. You've made me all emotional, Juliet. Thank you so much. Those were really kind words. And, you know, I do feel so much love for the other empaths. I mean, I feel a lot of love for the whole world. But it is such a gift for me to be able to do that. And I think there aren't a lot of people who can hold the space for the darker emotions. And I have no problem with that, because I know there is light on the other side, and I know we will get there.
And I think that the coaches that get results are the ones that are able to do that and see that and understand where their clients are at and meet them there, so that they can pluck them out of wherever they are, so that they can enjoy the beauty of this life. Because yes, there's some shit stuff going on, but there's so much beauty and so much positivity. And that's the problem in this day and age with internet and constant news on TV, is that people just focus on all the negatives. But how about, and that's why, like, I love accounts like The Good News. And when John Krasinski, I think his name is, the actor, did the Some Good News little like a news flash for 20 minutes each week during lockdown, it brought people so much joy to see that there are kind and loving people on this planet. And yes, love is the answer. So sometimes when I say that, people are, oh, that's so boho of you to say that. I said, yeah, but love is the answer. You don't need to hate everyone in your life. You can send them with love and never see them again, but you send them love, because then you keep your energy to yourself.
Yeah. And I mean, it may sound hokey. I don't care. It's the fucking truth.
Yes, love is the answer, and we agree on that. Anita, where can people find you? I will put all your links and all of that in the show notes.
They can find me at AnitaKaiserWellness.com and on my Facebook page. And I also have a YouTube channel. So all under
check that
Anita
one
Kaiser
yet.
Wellness.
On my list. Anita, thank you so much for joining me today. As always, such a pleasure to talk to you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much, Juliet.
You're more than welcome. Speak to you soon.
There you have it, my lovelies. I hope that this conversation has brought more understanding about the empaths in your lives. As you've heard, there's nothing wrong with being an empath. Quite the opposite, in fact. If you are an empath and are struggling with setting boundaries, please do reach out to Anita. She will definitely help you. All her information can be found on the show's notes. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your friends and family and leave me a comment rating on the platform that you use. You can also support the podcast by clicking on the Buy Me a Coffee link. You can join the conversation in my Facebook group, The Happy Curator Podcast, and keep updating by following me on Instagram and Facebook under The Happy Curator Podcast. Until next time.